Hello, Capital W friends, fans, and followers. I'm Leslie Winick, Capital W board member, and this is another Take 5. I am very excited for this conversation today, not only because Valerie Ausband has become a friend recently, but because she is a real advocate for excellence in mortgage. It doesn't depend on your gender, it depends on your performance, but she also really knows how to mentor and lift other people. She's done this for so many people within mortgage capital markets and mortgage in general, and a lot for Capital W already. Thank you for being here.
I'm thrilled to be here. It's been such a easy road when we met. Yeah, I guess that was May.
Yeah,
it's just May. Yeah. So I've been thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, so for those of you at home, that's just about 4 or 5 months ago. But it shows the power of a network, and it shows the power of connection when we have a shared goal. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
Take 5 is an interview format. We ask the same 5 questions of all of our guests, and then we ask some cute little fun facts at the end to get to know a little bit more about your personal story.
Okay, all right, let's do it.
We're going to jump in.
Okay.
All right, so you are a veteran. I'm not trying to age you. I'm not trying to age you, but you're a veteran of this.
The wrinkles will tell.
It's called hair color. Yeah. You're a veteran of the industry, but that gives you a lot of perspective and expertise. And while we were prepping for this meeting, we talked a little bit about your journey first as a loan processor, then a short stint in title, a longer term in insurance now. But why don't you give our listeners a little bit about your background and how your career has changed and who's helped you get there?
Let me start by saying it's been 27 years in mortgage insurance. So a very long time of that. But when I graduated from the University of Georgia, I was a history major. What was I going to do with that? I'm not real sure. But I was a history major, and a contact of my dad's was running Sears Mortgage, which was PNC at the time in Atlanta, and said, I'll give her a job. We'll figure it out. So I was a loan processor the Monday after I graduated from college, and didn't know what mortgage was, had no idea, sat there and, had loan files and loan officers calling me, wanting me to send their loans to underwriting.
Wow.
And I picked up the file, literal first day, picked up the file and walked it to the underwriter. There you go. Sat it down. And he called me promptly and said, "Where's the 1008?" I was like, what's a 1008? That's how much I did not know.
Into the fire.
Into the fire. Yeah, jumped into the fire. So that was an interesting sort of initiation into mortgage. But what I found fascinating was not just the connection of loan officers to processors to underwriters in the manufacturing process, like how it all worked, how the widget worked, but that people in their backgrounds and how you could save or what their credit meant, was so fascinated by the process of a mortgage and finance. And I'm thinking, what did I do with this history degree? Why did I do that? But I worked as a processor for about a year and a half, and went to another lender in Atlanta. It was a large retail lender at the time. And from there, I was recruited to lawyer's title in sales. I had my original boss that hired me at PNC said to a friend of his, "You need to hire Valerie. She needs to be in sales. She knows nothing." She knows nothing, which was accurate. It was a great description.
But he saw something.
But you need to hire her.
Yeah.
Like, behind the desk is just not where she needs to be long term. And so I was thankful to get that first job in sales. And I literally got in the car with a map, no cell phones.
I remember those days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Got in the car with Rand McNally and thought, I'll figure this out, point A to point B. And so I did that. And my original boss hired me at United Guarantee 27 years ago.
Wow.
And as a salesperson, not knowing anything about mortgage insurance, knowing very little about mortgage, I knew retail. But at that time, I had no idea what correspondent business was, what wholesale was, what capital markets was. It was just this world that I hadn't had exposure to. But again, found it really, really interesting. And this boss of mine I worked for 20-something years, and gave me opportunity covering Georgia for United Guarantee when I first started. And then he gave me the opportunity to manage a group for Georgia and Florida. Then I had another opportunity to cover the Southeast region. And it was wonderful. He was a tremendous mentor. But what he did for me that I hope I do for others is he created an advocacy network. So for me internally, that when somebody says, who can do this? Let's look to Valerie, or let's look to Tommy, or let's look to Susan, whoever it may be. He helped me realize that the creation of the advocacy network internally could do you so many favors, even if you don't understand the business or the ask just yet.
To begin with.
To begin with.
Yeah.
Like you have to be curious and willing.
Right.
And then you have to have advocates that understand your aptitude and your work ethic, and they're going to help you along. And so that's really what's happened in the last 27 years at United Guarantee and now Arch, is that advocacy and the mentors, the people that I've interacted with, have helped me take on different roles, even if I thought I'm not ready.
Am I ready for this? Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of that in a career, like
there's
managing
self-doubt.
people. What does that mean? Or taking on national accounts. I had a national accounts role for a handful of years. Like, what is that? What are we doing? Captive reinsurance? Yeah. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
You want me to work with secondary on a product creation? What does that mean?
Right.
And so all of those things came through the different opportunities and roles that I had, to where I'm now responsible for all of field sales and strategic accounts for Arch. But it was the people that helped me get here. It wasn't that I was the most qualified at the time. I was willing and able and curious.
Curious is a big one, right? Willing to ask why and not being afraid.
That's right.
But this is before an internet or AI or anything that would allow a quick access to knowledge.
Sure.
So I'm curious, when you were first starting and you couldn't, there wasn't even internet. You can't Google something.
Right.
How did you learn right away? Did someone sit with you and create that path of education?
So what would happen? We were lucky at the time. I feel fortunate that we had a Atlanta underwriting office, and so I would go make sales calls, and then I would come back into the underwriting office and sit with the underwriting managers. Then I would go to the SVP of sales, who also happened to be in the office, and talk about the day in the call. And I had this call, and they asked about a certain product that had nothing to do with mortgage insurance. They might have just been talking about non-QM before today's non-QM. And what does that mean? What does that have to do with us? What's subprime? Why does it make it subprime? Those sort of things. So after sales calls, I would come back late in the day and recap my sales calls.
Check in with your experts.
Yeah, sure.
I think there's a lesson there that, we're applying your history degree right now, going back in time.
Right.
I think when we're working in this, many companies in a hybrid stance or fully remote, we're losing that learning thread that is essential. We could read something online, but unless we're processing it in our brain and discussing it with others, it's hard to apply. So I think there's a lesson there for being in the office.
I agree with you that I think I've been successful through the people that have advocated for me, as I mentioned, but I've been successful because I had a relationship with people and was able to communicate and talk through scenarios where they didn't just give me the answer. I think that's what happens with AI today. It'll just give you the answer, versus when I really sort of taken this throughout my career is I'll come to someone and say, here's what happened. I'm thinking A or B. I'm not sure which. Can you help me come to the answer?
Yep.
And it's subjective at a lot of times, right? But how did I get there? So trying to have that critical thinking without just getting the answer and going on about your day doesn't lead to true understanding.
Exactly.
And so having a relationship with people in office, I think, is really, really important.
I do too. We can end the interview there. There's all of your lessons for this Take 5.
Right.
No, but I mean, let's build off of that now. So in your current position as an SVP of field sales, you have a lot of people underneath you. You're trying to raise them and grow your organization.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your responsibilities, a day in the life of Valerie today,
Sure.
and how you inspire them and educate them?
Of course.
And basically bring in new business.
Right. Yeah. So ultimately, you think from sales, you have your goal is to write as much business as possible, right? So closed loans, UPB volume is really what we're looking for on a closed loan, and mortgage insurance, obviously, on that. But it's so much greater than that. Our salespeople have to have depth of relationship throughout an organization. So you think about that manufacturing process from C-suite all the way through the processor. And because of that, they have to have different skill sets and different points of conversation, and they have to have an understanding of mortgage banking.
Right.
It's not just about MI product. Anybody can Google that today,
right?
ChatGPT. Nobody's asking us what the rate is on a 90 LTV and a 760 credit score. They can find that through technology. What they're asking us is, who do you know? What do you know? How can you help us make money or save money, save a deal kind of thing? And so our salespeople just have to be curious about the industry. So part of my job is to facilitate that. We have a lot of leaders within their state and local MBA. That's an initiative and sort of a core competency of what I think a strong salesperson has in their toolkit is a leadership position within their state and local MBA. It gives them context for the business, context for what their customers are interested in, and that relationship with, say, the C-suite, right, or the managers or sales leaders, underwriting leaders, whoever it may be. That platform and that relationship gives them credibility and builds on their skill set, right, through those broader conversations. And then as you work through the pipeline, loan officers is about structuring transactions. And so you're trying to help solve an issue for them. It's not about the rate. It's about what can you do with a particular borrower scenario. So they have to understand sort of the basics of what are we trying to do for your customer? And that's very transactional. A loan officer and a borrower, not sort of a bulk sale of things. And then processor and underwriters, you have to understand guidelines. What's going on with Fannie and Freddie? What's going on with the largest aggregators? You're not saying they're an expert in all that. Nobody can know everything, but they have to understand the core of the business.
Right.
That's right. That's right. And so a lot of our role is understanding and having relationships with different people throughout the organization, but you have to have some depth of knowledge. And that's been very important to me. So whether it's, looking through CapitalW's fundamentals, which I love.
Thank you for the plug.
It's sincere. Looking through that, we have a lot of people that have their CMBs or their AMPs. So really,
you have an AMP.
I have an AMP.
Yeah.
I probably should do something more, which is why I'm involved with CapitalW. Because I did it so early on in my career, I didn't really have the background to absorb. Did it very, very early. And there's so much to this industry and how it's evolved. I probably could do it again. You learn something is my point.
That's interesting. So you're saying take a little context. Like I remember back in the day, many people would, you finished your undergrad, and a lot of people went into business for a few years before they went back to get their MBA, right? Because you wanted to be a little seasoned to understand what you're learning in the classroom. So you feel that a little bit about an AMP or a CMB?
I do. And I've actually, with our salespeople, I've said, you say you're new to mortgage insurance. You don't need to go immediately to School of Mortgage Banking. You need to ask more questions of your lenders. You need to have some sort of basis of understanding, especially as you sort of move through that. You come to capital markets, which is complex. So you have to I think, have some understanding so that you can absorb more and then apply it.
Building blocks.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And I love that what you just said at the end, applied. That's the whole thing, right? Context applied.
Right. People are smart, but can they apply it is a whole different ballgame.
And you've talked about a human thread here. AI is the topic du jour. I don't think it's going to go away.
Right.
And this is a nice segue to the next question. Okay. The question is, what do you think are the most pressing issues in mortgage industry right now? And I'll segue with AI because you have this thread of the human side is very important in business.
Yes,
you have to have that knowledge and context. Yep. So I'm leading the witness here with saying AI is probably one of the issues.
Yeah, I think so.
And then what are some of the other things?
A lot of our conversation is around technology and not replacing a person, but how can we be more efficient? Right. It was sort of what I mentioned. It's can you save somebody time or money?
Right.
Or both. And I think that's where the technology piece comes in. We utilize AI technology. Our lenders, we're seeing more and more of that, which makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But there also is a subjective and art to underwriting, right? A more complex file if we're talking about what we do. And I think a pressing issue for the industry, I still think it's affordable housing. And what does that even mean? Is there affordable housing?
I'm with you.
So, is there? So you talk about inventory and you talk about the age of a borrower is certainly later in their sort of life than 20 years ago. And I think, how does anybody afford a loan? What happens when your refrigerator breaks? So
Right.
I think it's inventory and affordability is what, as an industry, we're struggling with, and how to solve that. It's not just one. It's not one piece of the manufacturing process. It's all of it.
Yes.
And I'm not sure we're in concert yet on how to fix that. I know there are different pieces of the industry trying to solve their puzzle,
Right.
piece of the puzzle, but
Right.
it's got to be a collective conversation.
Yeah, and sitting in insurance, you're in a unique vantage point to that right now, because there are so many states with climate issues
Sure.
that insurance companies are just completely pulling out of the market.
And we have that conversation a lot. So 𝗪𝗏 is a part of 𝗪𝗏 Capital Group. So it's an insurance company. It started out as reinsurance. And obviously through a P&C group, we see a lot of damage that comes through from, obviously massive storms and devastation of flooding or tornadoes and whatnot. And so you're right. You think of just your regular like principal and interest, and all of a sudden it's the taxes and insurance that can just absolutely make something unaffordable. And, the California wildfires, that was devastating, still devastating. And then the hurricanes in Florida and whatnot. So you think, how do you manage that? And what happens to insurance? And obviously you have to have it, but does that prohibit somebody from getting their first home or moving to a location where there's a job, but then they can't afford a house? Right. I think that all goes in concert together.
I do. I think you're right. It's concert. And what's a concert harmony? And I don't necessarily know policy is going to solve it either, right? It's everyone acknowledging that this is a problem that we have to collectively solve. And I don't think we're all on the page.
I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone, a younger person who's entering mortgage capital markets right now in their career? What would be some nuggets of wisdom that you'd offer them?
I would say you have to raise your hand. So whether it's capital markets or anything else specific to capital markets, I think you have to raise your hand and not be afraid to ask a question that you think the answer is obvious. You just don't know what it is. And so to be vulnerable and be able to have a network of people that you can ask. And maybe you ask the same question to 3 different people.
Yes.
And then somehow you take little nuggets from that. So I would say be willing to find advocates that can help you and continually ask questions and be inquisitive.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. And not be afraid that you don't, I think there's a lot of people that certainly have a math background, or a finance background, but there are also people that are just smart and want to be interested in capital markets and what happens, not the math of it, but the trading of it, or, the interesting piece of like, how do the investors come together? How do you manage a pipeline?
Yeah.
And I think that finding a mentor is incredibly important. Like one person that can help you go the next step and give you advice. I think that's important no matter what role you're after.
So ask why of several people.
Ask why of several people.
And make sure you're asking some people that you respect, right? That their answer is going to be one that you want to retain. Right.
Yeah, well, I think that asking multiple people comes from people have different points of view. Is this a today answer, or is this a 5 year from now answer? Why is the strategy what it is? What are we doing, and why are we doing that? Not just what is the answer on this. Yeah, you're flipping it.
Some people are told, I can't say I don't know the answer.
Right.
We were literally just talking about this last night with some colleagues at dinner. An expert at my company on investor solutions was in a meeting. He's known as being wildly intelligent and very deep in this. And someone asked a question, and he said, I don't know that, but I'll find out for you. I'll get that answer. And someone on his team said, I thought that was the best thing I've ever heard. That he didn't know. He didn't know, and he was willing to say, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. There's power in that. When someone vamps and fluffs, it's not always the right answer.
Exactly.
Okay, great advice. So what about for organizations? Like, what's advice you're going to give an organization right now who's looking to get a more younger people in their pipeline, a more diverse workforce right now? We've been in retraction the last several years of mortgage.
Sure.
We know it's going to pick up again. What are you telling your colleagues at 𝗪𝗏? What would you coach another organization to do?
I would say you have to look outside of the box. It's like, who do you know that knows someone that may not even be in mortgage, but their aptitude is tremendous, right? Their curiosity is high about things. And so I think you have to look outside of the box of the typical person and degree. I'll use myself as that example, right? Like if I were excluded just because I was a history degree and I didn't have a finance or real estate or accounting degree,
right,
then you might be looking in the wrong pool.
Right.
So I think at times this industry looks in a very small pool of applicants, and instead we should be looking at those that might not have the experience but are interested,
capable,
a
little bit of a sponge there, showing
so
interest.
I think a lot of it is who you know, which is hard in recruiting.
Very hard.
So it's one of those, and then how do you know?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think a lot of that comes from maybe they need to talk to different people in the organization, not just the hiring manager, to get sort of the lay of the land of, did they ask good questions? Did they understand the organization? Had they done their research?
Their homework. That's really important to me. Right. Now that it's at your fingertips, young people, go do your homework before you interview.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that's one thing when I'm hiring and I talk to people about hiring is if they come into an interview and they have not looked at the organization, I mean, you can tell immediately. You think, well, they're not curious.
Right.
They're not prepared.
Right.
How are they going to be on their own when they're not being mentored every day for every question? You're sitting there sort of job training.
Exactly.
What are they going to do?
Exactly. So. And after your interview, write a thank you note. Write a sincere thank you note that talks and reflects
a very specific thank you note, right?
Yes.
Like what
She's
did you talk
really
about?
Good at the thank you notes. It stands out. It's special. Well, I could talk to you for another 30 minutes, but we're going to have to probably edit this down. Time for our Fast Five. Okay. So in addition to being an excellent thank you note scribe, what's your favorite food?
Probably say chips and salsa. Pretty simple.
Literally, me too. Literally, I
chips and salsa. I can eat it all day.
All day.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
That's funny.
That's awesome. What are your special hobbies or interests?
With my family in particular, I've got two boys who play sports. Watching baseball is probably one of my favorite things to do with them. We really enjoy snow skiing.
Oh, great.
Say that. And I'm a big podcaster. So I like murder mysteries. Like I love Dateline or any kind of who did it.
Oh, that's fun.
Kind of thing. So so I'll do that just sort of as I'm driving around. And, but from the family perspective, I really enjoy just any kind of sport activity with my boys.
That's fantastic. So you're podcasting, but is there a book or periodical or a podcast that you'd recommend that you like?
A murder one? Sure.
Anything with death.
Yeah. There's a series called Up and Vanish. That's sort of a fun one with this guy named Payne Lindsay out of Atlanta.
Okay.
But I really like, there's a podcast, I think the actual name is All in One. Do I have that right? Where there's four guys in business that interview people, and they talk about technology, they talk about the market, they talk about politics and what's going on. It's just this fascinating.
All in One.
All in One.
Okay.
I think that's the correct name of it.
I'm going to check that out.
That's a good one.
Okay. And finally, if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, I know you're a seasoned traveler. If you go anywhere, but right now, where would you go?
I think this time of year, I think I'd like to go to Positano. That'd be on my list.
Yeah.
So
that's
fantastic. On my list.
Okay. Coastal Italy. Well, thank you for being here.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for the ask.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on another Take 5 soon. Thanks.
I appreciate it.